Joining us now to discuss these latest developments, foreign policy expert Harley Lippman back on the program. Harley, you got a big smile on your face. I think you like that there's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, very much so. We're delighted that for once, in a very long time, we have someone leading this country and leading the world that, you use the word common sense, but sees it as it is and is taking the appropriate action. You know, a good example in understanding what he's doing to the Houthis, you think of archers that fire arrows in the air. Mm-hmm. So the Biden administration would try to shoot down the arrows that were coming their way. But what Trump is doing is he's taken out the archers before they even could fire the arrows. So that to me is how I see it, how the Trump administration is going much further than the Biden administration, which never did enough. And our enemies understood it as weakness. They knew they could hit Biden. He'll hit back a little bit, but not much.
No.
And they felt it's a price they're willing to pay. With Trump, one, because he's seen as unpredictable, which is the most frightening theme for any leader.
Yep.
Someone's unpredictable, they can't plan to that, which I think it gives us a huge advantage that the United States has in conducting foreign policy. Second, Trump is decisive. Third, he's sending him a message in no uncertain terms that enough is enough. And lastly, which I think is so important, is to read his last announcement that he put on Truth Social. To me, it was just brilliant. I don't know how you could come up with a better analysis than he did. He basically made the point that don't let anybody be fooled. This is all coming from Iran. Iran is guiding them, training them, equipping them.
Yep.
And that if they think they could hide behind their proxies, that if Iran thinks they could hide behind the Houthi, they're wrong. Because Trump has said any further missiles coming from Yemen, where the Houthis are in control, it will be seen as coming from Iran, and there'll be appropriate consequences. So I think that is exactly the place to be, because at the end of the day, unless you cut off the head of the snake, which is Iran, that's the only way you'll have peace and stability in that part of the world.
Yeah, he understands that. And Joe pretty much gave him an open checkbook and a free pass, if you think about it. I mean, allowing that, what was it, Harley, like $10 billion in humanitarian aid. I put those in air quotes because it's all BS. He gave that $10 billion to the Qatarians and said, okay, Qatar, you can manage this cash and give it to Iran as they need it. Yeah, duh. They're going to say they need it for this. They're going to give them money and they'll spend other cash they have and give it to the Houthis, give it to Hamas, give it to these different terror groups. I'm going to read a little bit more of that post because you're right, Harley. What the president said here is exactly something we didn't see for 4 years under feckless Joe. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force. There's no guarantee the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move. They're giving them the weapons. They're supplying the money, sophisticated equipment, and so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as a shot being fired in weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible. They will suffer the consequences, and the consequences will be dire. Again, F-A-F-O. If you don't know what it means, you better figure it out, because over the next 4 years, a lot of the bad guys around the globe are going to figure it out, Harley, aren't they? A lot of bad guys are going to figure it out.
Exactly. And this is, and again, I think a lot of critics of Trump don't understand that what he's trying to do is creating peace. People get upset, think, oh, well, he's militaristic, he's firing on the Houthi. This is designed so we don't have a war. That's what's important for people to understand. What President Trump is doing is trying to make sure that there is no more violence and wars. So he's being thoughtful, strategic, and he's come up with a plan that's going to speak their language, which is they only respect strength at the end of the day.
That's exactly it. Harley, one last question for you, off subject, but more terrorist. those U.S. airstrikes just a few days back, before he started giving hell to the Houthis, he was able to kill one of the top ISIS leaders who was hiding out over in Iraq. So obviously, all these countries that we spent 20-some years fighting in, still a hotbed, thanks to Joe allowing the door wide open over the last 4 years, not taking any decisive action against these guys. And so you had ISIS resurging in Syria. Now, one of their main commanders killed in Iraq. What does that tell you about ISIS as far as how widespread they are? Because we've seen them now on the continent of Africa in multiple countries, Syria trying to take back control, and we just take out one of their top commanders in Iraq.
It tells you that you have to be vigilant always, because this evil will rear its ugly head again. Even though President Trump did a brilliant job of taking out the Houthis when he was first president. I'm sorry, taking out ISIS when he was first president. At the same time, they come back. So you have to be resolute, you have to be disciplined, and you can't give up. You have to stay with it. It may be boring, it may not be very sexy, but you have to keep pounding the enemy. I think that at the end of the day, what it tells us is that President Trump is acting to support our friends, create peace and stability in the region, and defend America's interests, which is what he was elected to do.
Amen.
And I think all these things will make the world a better and safer place for everyone.
Totally agree. A lot of the folks on the left don't see it yet because they'd cut their nose to spite their face because they hate Donald J. Trump. But when they see that this country's safe, that the world's safer under him, just like they were the first 4 years when he was in, they're never going to say we were right, Harley, but they'll just keep their damn mouths shut. Harley Lippman.
Exactly.
Foreign
That's
policy.
good enough.
Yeah, that's good enough. We'll take it. Just zip it up. Harley, as always,
Right.
Thank you, brother, for coming on. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. And thank you for what you do.